Hello, everybody, and welcome back to day 9 of Raging Reveals, where every day we're going to cover all of the announcement for Leagues 5 as we count up to the launch day on November 27th. Yesterday, we got Overgrown, a new farming relic that will auto-harvest and plant new seeds for you. But even if you didn't choose that, we have quite the bountiful harvest for today's announcement. And just before we get into the announcement today, I wanted to quickly remind you that yesterday we dropped the Leagues 5 planning sheet. Gecko, a member of my Discord, has been working on this, and I think it's just absolutely phenomenal. You can see so much information on a really easy glance. Some people were asking for ways to support the project, so there's also now a Buy Me a Coffee link that goes to Gecko. So if you want to show them some love, I think they definitely deserve it after all the work they've done on this sheet. Today's announcement is going to be Combat Masteries. Yes, it's finally here. You'll be earning Combat Mastery points by completing assigned tasks that will scale up in difficulty. You'll then spend those mastery points to unlock powerful new style-focused abilities. The new skill tree has a bunch of different options, however, you will need the previous tier to unlock the next one, but you'll also get passive buffs as you reach those tiers that will apply to all of the combat styles, not just the one you're specialized in. And you'll actually get up to 10, so you'll really be able to mix and match here like never before. I'm not gonna lie, guys, I got chills as soon as I saw this because this is, without a doubt, probably the most exciting update I think I've ever seen to Leagues. Like, I thought that nothing could top Echo bosses and Echo rewards, and that's still like an insanely cool thing. I'm not gonna lie, I don't even think this video will do full justice to the Combat Masteries because there is so much to explore, there is so much to think about, and there is so much to talk about. I'm just going to be giving my first impressions and kind of talking about how I feel. I'm sure there's going to be a much longer video in the future, probably several, talking about Combat Masteries and all of the really cool things that this has kind of opened up for Leagues. So when I saw this, my heart almost sank because, like, oh god, it's back to the drawing board. There is so much to think about, so much to actually, just play around with. Like, I think last year we saw some really cool stuff. I talked about like Mosquito build with Guthans, you get a ton of lifesteal, and then you had like Din's Bulwark. But like, oh god, the possibilities here are just gonna be insane, guys. Okay, before we talk about the relics, let's just talk about Combat Masteries, because this is also something I've been wanting for a while, a separate progression system. So you'll be spending the Combat Mastery points to unlock these abilities. Basically, you'll get 1 point, you get to spend it and unlock a new one, right? But you'll earn those Combat Mastery points by completing assigned tasks. They've actually shown us what those tasks are, up to a total of 10. First task will require you to kill a giant. That's something you can do very early on. So we're actually getting our first bit of combat relics like right away. Next, defeat 10 monsters with a combat level of 100 plus. I'm already thinking about ways that you can like go and safe spot monsters. Like blue dragons are combat level 111. They have elemental weaknesses, so maybe magic is like really insane early game because you'll just blast these 10 monsters and already have tier 2 in like the first 10 minutes or something. Like, I don't know, man. This is some pretty cool stuff here. Your next task will be to defeat Scurious by yourself. Scurious is making its debut to Leagues. Everybody will have access because it is in Misthalin. And while we won't be able to run down Scurious with 2,000 people right at the start and get this task, when you do go and fight them on your own in a private instance, that's another task completed. And it's also some of the best combat training in the game. Tier 4 will require you to kill a monster with a Slayer level of 55 or higher. The earliest one here being Turots at 55, but you can only get those in Fremennik. Luckily, everyone at Slayer level 57 will have access to mutated Zygomites in Xanaris, so that kind of works out. Okay, task 5, defeat Jad in the Fight Caves. Doing Jad super early in Leagues is incredibly fun for me. Like, you're taking it on with like barely any supplies. You're really trying to get, the most damage out of whatever you have right now. Again, I think this is going to make range and magic feel really strong because, melee is going to struggle a lot more getting through the fight caves than range and magic will. Next, you'll have to reach a combat level of 100. Now, the thing about this is I'm not sure if these tasks are actually like sequentially in order. I think that they are. You have to go one by one by one. But I guess there is a world where you could hit combat level 100 before you fight Jad, and the game is basically telling you, nope, you have to go to Jad. You have to go and take him on. Go get your fire cape, all right? It's time. And here's where it gets really fun. Your next task will be to defeat an Echo boss. And the next one will be to defeat your second unique Echo Boss, and then your third unique Echo Boss. So you're really going to be challenged to take on those new Echo Boss encounters in your regions. And I think that this is going to make Echo Bosses so fun, because even if you're struggling to fight it, once you get that kill, you're going to get a massive power spike with your next combat relic. Or I should say combat masteries. I'm probably going to make that mistake a lot, so... And I think this really changes what kind of Echo Bosses you might want to go for. I think some of the Echo Bosses that are easier to have access to, so something like Hispori and Korend, that's a boss you'll probably be able to access a lot faster than Cerberus, which requires level 91 Slayer. Or completing the Colosseum to take on Echo Soul. Like, there's a very big difference there of difficulty, and I think that this makes the Echo Bosses a little bit more interesting when completing them is giving you access to some pretty strong powers that might help you in other parts of the game instead. Finally, you've gotten 9 combat mastery points. You have one final challenge, and that's to defeat Zuck in the Inferno. That's right, your very last combat mastery will require you to take on the Inferno, which we all have access to with Karumja. And I think putting these pinnacle difficulty combat content as a part of your progression is a really cool way to get people outside of their comfort zone, feel the heat of the Inferno, and you know what? You might just find yourself enjoying it a lot more than you might think. I know that my first Inferno was in Shattered Relics, and the really powerful relics that you get by the time you're ready for that content makes it a lot easier than you might expect, and also giving you that confidence to try Triple Jads and try Zuck. And even if you're worried about doing the Inferno, I wanted to point out that the 6th combat mastery point here is to just reach a combat level of 100, and the only challenge you'll really be doing is defeating Jad in the fight caves. So I think this is a good time to talk about tiers and passives. Yes, I want to talk about these combat masteries. Yes, I want to talk about them, but let's talk about tiers and passives first. When you get a combat mastery point, you'll be able to spend it to unlock a new combat mastery, right? And you can't get to the next tier unless you've unlocked the previous combat mastery for that specific style. So for example, I wouldn't be able to do the tier 2 melee combat mastery unless I've unlocked the tier 1 mastery first. However, when I do reach a tier for the first time, I'll also get a passive that not only applies to that specific combat style, but to every single combat style. So your off styles aren't going to feel as bad this year when those passives are kind of affecting everything. You're just really doubling down on a specific combat style as well. The tier 1 passive is a 95% chance to save weapon charges, ammo, and runes. This essentially means you'll have 20 times the ammunition, runes, weapon charges, and is especially helpful for mage and range, because I remember last leagues, I chewed through runes to do ancient magic so damn fast. I was going broke every single Slayer task. And don't forget that the Scythe won't actually even require Vials of Blood anymore, because you can get it in any one of the raids. It's just going to require blood runes, and you'll be saving a pretty good amount of those. In tier 2, healing from all sources is increased by 20%. And I think that this is just going to make it a lot easier to do some of this PVM content, get into it a little bit early when your food is way more efficient per inventory slot. And even if you're completely planking and you have no idea what you're doing, as long as you're spamming your food and it's healing you 20% more, like, you'll be healing up pretty damn fast. In tier 3, accuracy with all styles is increased by 100%. And just to be clear here, I'm pretty sure this is doubling your accuracy. It's not just setting your accuracy to 100%. That's just how the wording works, and I think that makes sense. 100% accuracy would be a little bit ridiculous, but basically, you're going to get double accuracy for every single style. That's kind of nuts. Tier 4, your damage taken is going to be reduced by 15%. I know everybody loves to optimize for damage, but I also feel like a cool part about leagues is being like unkillable and just being super tanky. It's a big part of why I like the melee relics in the past, because they gave you so much defense and so much, I guess, ability to just survive. And it just makes so much of the content chill when, like, your mistakes just don't usually mean that you die. In tier 5, your prayer point gain from all sources is increased by 25%, so prayer pots, super restores, that kind of thing. And finally, in tier 6, when you've unlocked a capstone mastery for that style, you'll also get all of your attacks with all your styles now have 60% prayer penetration. Now, you might think that this is just for PKing, but there's a lot of monsters that have prayer as well. Things like Akka and Tombs of a Masket will pray for 2 different styles, and you'll just be able to bypass that. Hunlif, like, maybe you just don't even bother swapping and you just stick to one style with the 60% prayer prevention. I don't know every monster in the game that has a prayer. I don't know how this works with things like Wardens. I think it probably gives you it there too. High accuracy, prayer penetration, Like, this is for every single style. And we haven't even talked about a single combat mastery yet. So let's actually talk about that. Let's kind of get into it. Starting off with melee, I think this is a huge fan favorite this season. For tier 1, melee hits have a 25% chance to roll damage twice and take the highest result. I have a bit of preliminary numbers about this. I don't know if they're 100% accurate, but this comes out to about an 8% damage bonus. Tier 2, melee hits have a 10% chance to generate an echo hit. This is an additional melee hit, but it only has 50% of the max hit. This is basically 5% more damage, but it's really cool to see that extra hit splat. Tier 3, remember, this is where you'll have to fight Scurrius, and then we'll actually set your melee attack rate to 80%, rounding down. That rounding down part is absurd, because that means that 3-tick weapons become 2-tick weapons. I'm actually looking up, like, 3-tick melee weapons because I feel like there's a world where maybe the goblin paint cannon is like insanely good, and I don't know, maybe you get a ham joint and that's just your new best slot item. Like, I'm not sure what this means. Outside of that, 4-tick weapons will become 3-tick weapons. 5-tick weapons will become 4-tick weapons. They're getting 1 tick faster. But the kind of weird thing is that 6-tick weapons should go down to 4-tick. I think that this might mean that some 6-tick weapons, especially, are going to be the best in this tier. So we saw like the Dragon Longsword be a crazy weapon last year when 5-tick weapons were so good. If 6-tick weapons are good, maybe this is like the year of the Dragon Battle Axe. I don't know. I think this is going to make God Swords a lot of fun to use. I think it's so cool that 3-tick weapons are getting a huge benefit and like 6-tick weapons are getting a massive benefit from this. So I think that there's already like people routing out every single like weapon that benefits from this the most and how to get that in the early game. Tier 4, melee hits will have a 5% chance to heal 40% of damage dealt. This comes out to 2% lifesteal. It's not anything crazy, but any kind of sustain is really nice in leagues, and it kind of keeps you alive. A lot of times, you have so much damage that translates to a lot of lifesteal back as well. Next, in Tier 5, melee attack rate will actually be set to 50%, and this is going to be rounded down above 5-tick and rounded up below 4-tick. This is pretty much exactly what we saw last year with the attack speed relics. 5-tick weapons will be the absolute king here because they do benefit from that rounding down to 2-tick as well. Not only does this make the Scythe very powerful, but it also really benefits the Sunlight Spear from the Echo Soul boss. And finally, Tier 6, your chance to generate a melee echo increases to 20%. An additional 7.5% damage above the Tier 2. But, I mean, really, the cool part here is you can possibly attack like 8 times in a row, and there will be a clip of somebody just hitting a boss and one-shotting it with like 8 echoes. I think the chance of landing at 20% 8 times is 1 in about 400,000. But if anybody wants to check my numbers on that, have fun. So that's melee. Let's talk about ranged. Tier 1, any damage rolls beneath 30% will be increased to exactly 30%. You can still miss, you can still fail the accuracy roll, but if you do hit, you're not going to be hitting just once. You're always going to be hitting at least 30% of your max hit. This is really nice for ranged in the early game, which does have lower hits, but attacks a lot faster with things like knives or bows or whatever you're using, really. Tier 2, any subsequent ranged attack has its max hit increased by an additional 5%. This resets after 20%, which means it's basically like a 5-hit combo. You'll hit for 0, then plus 5%, plus 10, plus 15, plus 20. Once you hit that 20%, though, you'll start back at the beginning. I think this comes out to about 10% damage boost. Tier 3 is absolutely absurd. Again, this is the 80% attack speed, but it's rounding down. This means that the blowpipe, which is a 3-tick weapon, will go and get rounded down to 2 ticks. And then on rapid, you now have a 1-tick blowpipe just at Tier 3. Holy moly. Blowpipe is sick. Also, darts and knives are also 3 ticks, so once you get this, you'll have 1-tick darts and knives as well. Remember, it does the rounding down first, and then it applies rapid for basically 1 attack speed faster. So just like with melee, I think 6-tick weapons really benefit the most here. This includes things like crossbows, but also longbows as well. So yeah, rune crossbow is still going to be insane just like last year, but I think also things like maybe like the magic longbow or something, that's going to go down to 3-tick, and even the twisted bow is going to go from 6-tick to 3-tick. That's pretty damn strong. Tier 4 seems to be the healing tier, so every 5th ranged hit will heal for 5 hit points. It's nice, range hits pretty fast, so 1 health per hit, that's fine. Tier 5 is just like last year's. Range attack is set to 50% and rounded down. So 6-tick weapons like Xeric Crossbow, things like the Twisted Bow really benefit here because they will round down to 3-tick and then they will also get 1-tick faster. It's still good to know though that even at the 80%, I think Twisted Bow and Xeric Crossbow benefit a lot because they're getting that 80% reduction and they're doubling their attack speed already. You never miss with ranged. You have 100% accuracy. I have hyped up the Drygore Blowpipe like this whole season because of its insane accuracy. And the fact that now you can never miss with ranged once you get to the top like spot kind of makes me think that I don't know if I care that much about the Drygore Blowpipe anymore, all right? Maybe I want to go with something like the regular Blowpipe and just max this thing like crazy. Because now, like, it's just gonna be so good. This will especially have benefits anywhere where monsters have really high range defense, such as fighting against Soul, for example. His range defense is stupid high. And if you never miss, then who cares? It might as well be 0, right? You'll just plow through monsters with this. It is going to be so damn cool. Okay, and finally, magic. Tier 1, when you roll above 90% of your max hit, your damage is increased by 50%. This is about a 5% boost, basically just making your max hits a little bit higher. So Mage Tier 2, your magic max hit is increased by 5% per tick in between your attacks. I'm going to be honest, I don't really understand how this works. At first, I thought that this just means if you're attacking every 5 ticks, you're getting a 25% max hit bonus, but then it says per tick in between your attacks, so maybe that's 4 ticks in between 5 ticks, so it's 20% bonus. But then I read that thing about up to 40%, and I'm not sure if that means that you have to like wait and then you get like a huge mage hit, or if this means that that magic max hit is actually continuing to increase up to 40%. It doesn't say that it resets like the range tier 2 does, so that's what kind of makes me think that maybe you'll just get up to a 40% damage bonus the longer you're in combat with magic, and it'll only take you like 2 or 3 attacks. Keep in mind that once you do get the faster attack speed relics, if it really only counts like, 5% per attack speed basically, at like 2 ticks, that's like 10%. So it goes down in value a lot and kind of matches the others if it's like that. That's what's making me think it might be resetting every attack. But if you, for some reason, are like waiting, if you had like, 8 seconds in between your attacks, then you would get the 40% bonus. I'm not sure. Tier 3 will make your magic attacks set to 80%, rounding down. I don't think that there are any 6-tick mage weapons. I'm going to take a look. Yeah, I think magic doesn't benefit the most from this. It just turns most of your spells, which are 5-tick, it's going to make them into a 3-tick. So you're really going to want to get your hands on a powered staff like the Trident as soon as possible. It will be really good for the bone staff that you get from Scurious, because that will actually go to 2-tick against Scurious. So very fast mage training early. Tier 4, again with some healing. When you roll above 90% of your max hit, you will heal 10% of the damage dealt. I really like what they've kind of set up where melee is this like, double hit style. Ranged is all about like accuracy and hitting multiple times in a row. And then magic is kind of always based off your max hit here. Tier 5, just like the others, attack speeds are set to 50%, rounded down. So this means you will still get that 2-tick shadow here, as well as, your ancients and your standard spells. I kind of like this because I felt like 2-tick mage spells were exceptionally powerful early, and I think that this makes powered staffs feel a little bit better to use until you get tier 5 and you have like a shadow or something like that. And finally, at tier 6, your max hit with magic is increased by 1% for every 100 hit points remaining on the target, up to 10%. So if they have 1,000 hit points or more, you're dealing 10% more damage. However, on a successful magic hit, if your target has less hit points than your max hit, you max hit. So there's like a giant slayer effect here where you're dealing more damage to monsters that have inflated health pools. In large raids or against next, you're basically going to have that 10% the whole time. And as soon as it hits your execute range, you'll instantly kill the mob on the next hit. You'll do your max hit and one-shot it, basically. So if your max hit's on 100, as soon as they hit 100 hit points, it's dead. I really love that. I think that's pretty cool to have like that execute feature and to make sure you're not like dealing overkill damage, which I think slows down a lot of combats when a monster has like 2 hit points. But now the fact that you'll always be able to execute it and move on, like that sounds really damn cool. I really feel like this is going to just shake up so much planning, because you're not actually just choosing one combat style. Remember how I said that the 6th combat task is a combat level of 100 and defeating Jad? That will get you tier 6, and that will allow you to unlock the final passive for all the combat styles. However, you can earn up to 10 That means that you have 4 more options to play around with. And really, you don't necessarily even need to go for tier 6 if you don't want to. Maybe you go for tier 5 in 2 different styles. That way you can have a 2-tick Twisted Bow and a 2-tick Scythe. Do you need prayer prevention from that passive in tier 6? If you have 2 different insane weapons to use, but it still allows you to kind of fully specialize and go for that tier 6 and then have 1 more off style of your choice. I know I instantly thought about going all in on melee, getting tier 6, being really strong with my melee setup, but then still getting tier 3 in range, so I have a 1-tick blowpipe. I had a crisis last night. I decided I'm probably going to go tier and win, and I think that this just locked it in like 100%. No, I can't say that. I'm going to change my mind on this so much that nothing's locked in right now, but that's where I'm leaning towards. And I still have 1 more point that I don't even know. Maybe I'm going to put it into magic for early game, or maybe I'm going to put it into ranged. That's something that I haven't talked about either. You don't have to pick these in any order. I might seriously go with like magic first. I don't know, like maybe I put in a point of magic first and then start working on melee because magic will help me out early. Or maybe I just go with range because it's eventually going to be part of my setup. I honestly don't even know if I care that much about getting any of the tier 5 and tier 6s because these tier 3s are really powerful. So I don't know, maybe I go for like a Tribrid style that has like, so I don't know, maybe you just go for like a Tribrid style that uses like god swords and melee. I don't know, a Zerite crossbow for ranged, and then you go Mauritania to get like a harm staff, and you have a 2-tick harm staff, right? I don't know, man. I think that actually makes Kandarin kind of cool. Tormented Bracelet is really damn strong for your max hit, but then Fremennik also gives you like really good jewelry, so I'd have to go Fremennik, Asgarnia, and Mauritania. Oh man, this is gonna be tough. All right, this video has probably gone long enough. I gotta eventually wrap it up. This is the coolest shit ever, man. I feel like I could sit here all day and just talk about it. I probably will. I'll probably be like talking about this and just thinking of things and answering comments and being in the Discord because I hate to say it, but yeah, this changes everything. I'll see you guys for tomorrow's video. I don't even care what they announced. Nothing's gonna top this. This is so cool. And I am just so impressed that they actually went with a system like this that still allows for specialization. It still allows for a Tribrid setup, or I think a hybrid is what a lot of people are gonna lean towards. I don't know, man. I'm just so thrilled right now. This is so cool. Don't forget the League planner sheet will be linked in the description, so you can use that to start planning your regions and relics. We're probably going to do our best to update all of this and, have that update coming in the next day or two. And I'll see you for tomorrow's reveal, whatever that might be.